Let's create this modern pop-out menu as easy as possible. Hi everyone, I'm Kyland. I make programming very simple and easy to understand. So if you enjoy programming or just want to learn something new, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. Let's get right into it. So over here, I've got an empty VS Code window, alright, and we're going to create a couple files over here. We're going to create one file, index.html, create another file, app.css, and we'll create one more called script.js. Alright, let's open up our HTML file and let's go ahead and create our boilerplate. We'll go ahead and link our CSS tag, or our CSS file, I should say. And we'll go ahead and link our script file as well. And we'll go ahead and defer that. Alright. Next, we'll go ahead and create a couple HTML tags. First thing we're going to do is create a button. And this is going to be the open menu button. Alright. And we're going to give this button a few attributes. First thing is going to be an ID of open menu, and we're going to give it a class of open menu button. Alright, and we need to give a div tag with a class of menu container and another class of display dash none, and this is going to be our outer portion of our pop-out menu. Alright, we're going to give it an ID of menu. Alright, and inside of this we're going to create another div tag. We're going to create the menu, and I'm going to add a specific class that I'll explain later. It's called pointer event all. And next we're going to create one more containing div. Is going to be menu enter, and inside of this we're going to create our menu items, and we'll just go ahead and create 3 of those. So now we open up our browser, and this is what we have so far. And let's actually add some text in here. We'll create menu item 1, and we'll do menu item 2, and we'll do menu item 3. We'll save that. There's our menu, and there's our button. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and pop over to the CSS. We're going to create a few default tags, and these will be used for later. So I'm going to create a pointer events all, and this is going to have pointer events set to all, and we'll go ahead and create a pointer events none, and this is going to have the pointer events set to none. And we're going to create our display none class. Alright, this is just to hide things. We're going to set display to none, and we're going to create one more called op-01, and this will be used later on. We'll set the opacity to 0.1. Alright, we'll go ahead and save that, and as you can see, since we added that display none class to that menu, it has now disappeared. So let's go ahead and style our menu button. So we're going to select the open menu button. We're going to set the color to this color right here. We're going to set the background to a linear gradient, and it's going to be a negative 45-degree angle, and we're going to have 4 separate colors here, and those will be the colors of our linear gradient. We're going to set border to none. We'll set outline to none. And actually, we're going to not set border to none, but we're going to give it a solid 1 pixel RGB 78, 78, 78. Just like that. Alright, now you can already see our menu is starting to shape up over here. We're going to give it a static height of 50 pixels, and we're going to give it a static width of 200 pixels. Just like that. Alright, we're going to increase the font size to 1.2 rem. We're going to give it a border radius of 24 pixels, and we're going to actually give it a background size of 400%. Now this will make sense a little bit later. And then once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and give the open menu button a hover, and we're just going to open menu button, hover, and we're going to set the cursor to pointer. So that way when we hover, we get that pointer. We're going to give it an active pseudo class as well. So we're going to select the open menu button, and we're going to say active. And what this is going to do is transform scale 0.95. So that means whenever it's active, it'll scale it down to 0.95%. So whenever we click this button, you can see you get that click effect now. Next, we're going to go ahead and style our menu container. So we will select the menu container class, and we're going to go ahead and give it a static height of 200 pixels and a static width of 200 pixels. We'll go ahead and style our menu. So we'll go ahead and select menu, give it a width of 150 pixels. We give it a background of RGBA 250, 250, 250, and our alpha channel is going to be 0.7. And then give it a border solid 1 pixel RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.45. Alright, and that's going to give us a slightly faded or looking like thinner border. We'll give it some border radius of 10 pixels and give it some margin. So we're going to give 15 pixels of margin on the top to get it off that button there. 0 margin on the right or the bottom, and then 15 pixels on the left to get it off the left a little bit. We're going to select the padding, and we're going to give it 5 pixels of padding on the top and the bottom, and 0 pixels of padding on the right and the left. And we're going to give it a box shadow, and this is going to be 0 offset, 2 pixels of blur radius, and 5 pixels of the blur width. And then we're going to give that blur an RGBA color of 48, 48, 48, and we're going to give it a 0.089. It's a very, very light, almost transparent. Alright, and if we save that, we still don't see anything because our menu is set to display none. But if we remove that class for a second, we can see our menu is starting to shape up. So next we'll go ahead and style our menu items. And the only thing we really need to do is give it some padding all the way around of 15 pixels. And you can see now that our menu has a little bit of spacing around it. It's got that nice box shadow. And let's add ourselves a hover effect on the menu items. So we're going to select menu item, and we're going to select hover. On the hover, we're going to say cursor pointer, and background color of RGBA 39, 39, 39, and 0.295. Just like that. And now you can see we've got this nice hover effect whenever we hover over all of our menu items. So let's jump over to our script now. And now we're going to add the functionality to our button. So we're going to select the menu is equal to document.query selector, and we're going to pass in that ID of menu. And we're going to select our button, and select that ID of open menu. We also need to select the HTML tag, and this will make sense here in a few minutes. I'm just going to select the HTML tag like that. We need to add functionality to the button. So we're going to select button and add an event listener. And on the click, we're going to call open menu. And we don't need that there. We actually need a comma there. And we're actually going to add an event listener to the window as well. So we're going to add an event listener, window.add event listener. Also on the click, we're going to say close menu. Alright, and this actually needs to be above this. Now we're going to create a couple functions. We're going to create a function to open the menu. We're going to create another function to close the menu. Alright, we'll go ahead and start with our open menu function. It's pretty simple. We're going to select the HTML, and we're going to select the class list, and we're going to remove that pointer events all class from the HTML tag. And if you remember over here, we need to set that actually, pointer events all. That way we get pointer events for all of the everything inside of the HTML. And we're going to go ahead and remove that. That's whenever we open the menu. And we're going to add to the HTML our other class list called pointer events none. Alright, and that's going to remove, it's going to disallow any pointer events on the page. And then we're going to select our menu. Alright, and we're going to add a class called menu open. And we're going to remove the display none class from that. That way that the menu displays over here. Now let's set up the closed menu function. This is going to be a little bit more tricky than the open menu. So we're going to grab the event, because whenever this is called, there should be an event that is fired. So we're going to check if e.target is not equal to menu. We're going to say and menu dot contains. We're going to check this to make sure that the menu does not contain the e.target, and we're going to negate that. So we're going to say menu does not contain the target, and one more, the e.target is not equal to the button. So we don't want this to fire when we are clicking on the menu. We don't want it to fire if the menu contains the specified target, and we don't want it to fire if the target is the button. So now we'll go ahead and specify our classes in here. So we're going to select the HTML, and we're going to say class list dot add, and we're going to add the pointer events all class back to it. Whenever we close it, we want to make sure we give pointer events back to the HTML, and we want to remove class list dot remove pointer events none. We want to make sure we add the pointer events back to the HTML and remove the no pointer events. So then we'll go ahead and menu.classList.add going to say menu close. Alright, and these classes will make a little bit more sense here shortly. I know I haven't added this or added this just yet, but this will make sense here shortly. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Let's see if, and we need to actually add our, right here, display none. Back to here. So if we go over here and refresh this, we're not getting that to open. And that's because I misspelled the ID here on the button. So now we get our menu that is opening. And we only have pointer events on the menu. We don't have any pointer events on anything else other than the menu. And if we click something, it doesn't close the menu. But as soon as we click out of the menu, it's not closing the menu. And that's simply because I never added the class to do it. So let's select menu.classlist.add, and we're going to add display dash none. Alright, so now if we refresh over here, menu opens, menu doesn't close on an item click, but as soon as I click outside of the menu closes. So this menu is nice and all, but let's add a little bit of spice to it. Let's add a couple of animations to make it look a little bit nicer. So let's start with the button. We'll animate the button on the hover. So we'll go ahead and add a keyframe down here. And we'll change this identifier to animate. And we'll add the animation at 0%. We're going to set the background position at 50%. And then at 50%, we'll set the background position to 100% to 50%. And then at 100%, we'll go back to 50%. And we'll set the background position 50%. And that'll be our hover animation. Now let's go ahead and add that up here to our button hover, if I can find it. Open menu button hover. Alright, we'll go ahead and add this animation. We'll call animate. And it's going to be infinite. So anytime it's hovering, it's running that animation. It'll be linear. And we'll run it for 2 seconds at a time. Alright, so if we save that now, if we look over here, we can see that the button has this hover animation where it's going from lighter to darker, but as soon as we stop hovering, it doesn't have that animation anymore. But as soon as we hover back on it, it's got that flashing animation. So that's one simple animation we can add. Let's add another to the menu whenever we open and close it. So we'll go ahead and go with an opacity animation. So to do this, we need to add a few keyframes here. So we'll add our first keyframe, and it's going to be animate open. And this animation is going to go from opacity of 0, and it's going to go to opacity of 1. So it'll go from completely transparent to no transparency at all. And our other keyframe is going to be animate close. And this is just going to be the exact opposite. So we're going to say from opacity 1, we're going to say to opacity 0. So that way whenever we close it, it goes from no opacity whatsoever to complete transparency. So now to add these keyframes to the menu, we need to select some classes. So we're going to say menu open, and we're going to give it an animation, animate open. That's going to be our animation name. It's going to be linear, and it's going to take 250 milliseconds. And we'll go ahead and add the WebKit animation, and this way it works on Chrome, animate open, linear, 250 milliseconds. Now the close, we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to select menu, close, and we're going to add animation, animate, close, linear. It's going to take 250 milliseconds, and this is going to ease out. And we're going to do the same for the WebKit animation. We'll just go ahead and copy this whole line right here down to here, just like that. All right, now we need to add a little bit more to our JavaScript. So over here in our JavaScript, we're going to add to our open menu function, we're just going to add a set timeout. And this is going to take in a callback function. Whoops. Let's do that. And for this, we just need to select menu, .classlist, .remove, and we're just going to remove that menu open class once the 250 milliseconds has elapsed. That way we don't have to worry about the animation 1 affecting animation 2. So we'll go ahead and add our timeout here, which is 250. It's in milliseconds, and that should be our menu open function done. Now we have to add the timeout function to the close function. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set timeout, and it's going to again take in a callback function. We're going to actually take this here because we don't want this to display none right away. We want this to display none after the animation is finished. Next, we'll go ahead and add the remove. Actually, we're going to remove the class list, the class of menu close, and we're also going to remove the OP-01 class. Alright, and I know I haven't added this to anything yet, but I'm going to here in just a second. Basically what this does is it sets the opacity to 0.1, and we're going to make another set timeout function so that this way that we don't get a flash of clear opacity right before it display none. Right before the display none is added to the menu. So we'll go ahead and add our timeout here of 250 milliseconds. And let's go ahead and set our other set timeout function here. Whoops, not set interval, but we're going to set timeout. And we are going to pass in our callback function. And this is just going to add the OP-01 class, and this is going to run after 230 milliseconds. So that way this will be added. So once it's about at opacity 0.1, we'll add it statically as opacity 0.1 right before we close the menu officially. We display none it. So let's save that, and that should be it. Let's check it out. We've got our hover effect. If we open it up, we can see it fades in. But if we click out, it looks like it's not working properly. Let's see what the issue is here. So the issue here is the fact that we have it set as linear here and ease out. We can't do that. So let's remove the linear, and now if we click it, we get it fading in. If we click out, we get it fading out, just like that. And that's how we can create a modern pop-out menu. If you did make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you in the next one.